Hi folks, welcome to a how to play video for Masters of Maple Syrup. This is a two-player card game. It plays in about 20 minutes. Typically you're playing with physical cards. I'm just using a digital implementation for this rules video. You can find the physical card game at www.firestarter.games. So with this game, you are two neighboring sugar bushes. That's Maple Tree Farms. You are rivals. You want to help each other out as neighbors, but at the end of the season, still be the master of maple syrup. So you'll achieve that by putting down 10 cards in front of you on your property. You've already got one card down. This is the red maple tree that both players will start the game with. So there's 9 more spaces to put cards. Every time you place cards, you're adding value to your property, and that's how you're going to win the game. If you look at the bottom right-hand side of a card, you'll see how much it's worth. So here, this card is worth 1 point, 2 points, and over here it's 1 point plus. And then there's a little game end ability in brown that tells you how you're going to earn more points for it. In this case, if this tree is tapped. We'll talk about tapping in just a minute here. The other thing you'll notice about cards is they have a cost. That's on the top left-hand side. And then they also have abilities. We've talked about the game end abilities, but also there are when first developed in red. You'll get to use those abilities immediately when you play the card. And then there are white box abilities. These all have different triggers. So in this case, when it's harvested, you'll get to use this ability. But if I look over here, this card says when developing, you get to use this ability. Many different styles here. Cards come in 2 types. There are trees in white, and then there are utilities in red. Trees are typically how you're going to be drawing cards in this game. And then utilities in red offer these various little effects and boosts. So we're almost ready with our setup here. We've got our 2 red maple trees with both players. We've got the 3 red action cards laid out in front of us. We would have shuffled this deck and then each drawn 5 cards. I have my 5 over here. And at the beginning of the game, you're going to pick 3 to keep. Now, if this is your first game, I recommend keeping trees. Those are always handy so that you can draw more cards. And also utilities that will let you draw cards. So here, this one, if I zoom in, if I look at its ability, it's going to help me to draw cards when I play it. So I'm going to choose 2 to get rid of over here, and I'm going to form a discard pile. My neighbor will have chosen 2 to get rid of as well, so that they have a total of 3 cards in their hand. And then we're ready to start the game. Now, it's the player who's wearing the most red who gets to play first. We'll just say that that's me today. So I'm going to choose one of these 3 action cards and turn it towards me. That's all I get to do on my turn. We'll start on the left here just to keep it simple. If I chose this action and turned it towards me, it says I get to tap up to 2 trees. That's what I've pointed towards me. Now, the tap action is when you would knock a spile, so a little tube, into a tree in order to start gathering sap from it and collecting it in a bucket. In this game, the tap action means you're going to take a tree and you're going to turn it sideways. If I had 2 trees, like this action card says, I would have gotten to tap 2 of my trees. On the far side, you'll see that my neighbor also has an action pointed towards them. It says tap 1 tree. So they also get to tap 1 tree. In this case, we both kind of got to do the same thing, but it's the beginning of the game. We'll soon build out our properties and start vying for different strategies. Okay, next up is my opponent's turn. They would get to pick from these 2 remaining action cards. And let's just say that they chose Harvest. They would take this card, turn it towards them, and do the action. Harvest is when you'll turn a tapped tree back upright. So they'll do just that. They'll turn their tree back upright, and they'll get to do the action on their card, which says, when harvested, draw 1 card. So they'll go ahead and add a card to their hand. I also have this harvest action pointed towards me, so I'll do the same thing, turn the card upright, and draw a card to my hand. All right. Now, there's only one choice left for me. It's develop. I'm going to have to turn it towards me because it's all that I can do. Here it says develop a card with a 1 cent discount. So I'm going to look at the cards I have in front of me, and let's say that I wanted to play the black maple. It costs 3, but I get 1 cent discount, so it only costs 2 now. In order to pay this, I have to discard other cards from my hand. So let's say I'm going to get rid of these 2 cards. 3 minus 1 equals 2. I discard 2 cards in order to pay for it, regardless of how much these cards cost. So even though Horse Sled costs 3 cents to play, it still only discards for 1 cent. So 3 minus 1, 2. That's 1 cent, 2 cents paid in order to play this card. My opponent, they will play a card as well. Let's say that they choose to put down this silver maple. Costs 2. They're developing at full cost, so they'll have to get rid of 2 cards from their hand in order to play that. Now, this silver maple has a when first developed ability. It says tap this tree, so they're going to go ahead and do that. Tap their tree. We move on. It's my opponent's turn, but there are no actions left for them to pick from, so they're going to flip all of these back to sideways and then get to pick from a fresh set of 3 actions. They're most likely going to take Harvest, because when they do this, they can harvest from their tree, draw their card, and I don't even get to harvest because I have no tapped trees. So that is kind of like a sneaky reason why they might have chosen this card. And then on my turn, I might choose Develop, because I have a 1 cent card and it costs me 0 with my discount. So there we go. Bam. It says draw 3 cards when first developed, so I'm going to do that. And then my neighbor, they might not even be able to play anything. And there's the case, right? They only had 2 cards in their hand, and I'm guessing that maybe they don't have any cheap cards to play. And it turned out to be right. So they aren't going to get to develop any cards whatsoever this turn. It was a wasted action for them. And then lastly, they'll probably choose tap and then tap 2 trees. And I would get to tap 1. I would likely pick my black maple, which lets me harvest for 2 cards instead of just 1. So there you go. That's kind of the basics of the game. On your turn, flip an action card towards you, perform the action, and then it's your neighbor's turn. You're gonna want to choose the cards that you put down on your property wisely in order to benefit from the actions that your neighbor is taking. So for instance, maybe you're putting cards down like this hand drill that says, when tapping, you may always tap an additional tree. Or maybe you're putting cards down like we did here with Reserve Supply that lets you draw 3 cards immediately. You're just basically trying to affect tempo in this game and benefit from what your neighbor is doing the best. But there you have it. If the game, or at the end of the game, again, once there's 10 cards down, you'll finish that turn. Both players would get to finish their develop action. And then you'll tally up all of your scores. If it's a tie, both players are the winners. That's essentially all you need to know to play Masters of Maple Syrup. Oh, there's one last thing. If your deck runs out of cards, you'll shuffle the discard pile, and then it will become the new deck. So if you end up in this situation over here, where all your cards are in discard and you cannot draw anymore, then you're going to shuffle the discard pile and then make it the new deck. Great. If you have any other questions, I would first check in on your rule sheet that comes with the game. It's just 2 pages, so you should be able to find your answer pretty quickly. If you still can't find your answer, though, check out the frequently asked questions page. We even have a little QR code that will scan and bring you to a website with the most recent questions. If you don't find your answer there, you can also ask a question there, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible with an answer. Otherwise, though, enjoy Masters of Maple Syrup. Hopefully you find your own little strategy and path to victory. There are many different ways to go about this game. And I'm looking forward to hearing how people are playing. Lovely. Okay. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.